All right. The movie Men are but two so far. There might be others joining a little bit later on, but tonight we're talking about Alan's nomination for a perfect movie, which is Sisu, which, just by way of introduction, those of you who don't know, when we first saw Sisu in theaters, our group of movie men, I remember like leading up to it, we were all excited. The trailers looked awesome. I mean, who doesn't want to see some guy killing a bunch of Nazis? And the R-rated version of the trailer was especially gruesome and enticing. And so we were all excited to watch it. And then we went and saw it. And needless to say, we were like, a little bit lackluster, a little bit let down. And then Alan jumps into the conversation, says, I'm pretty sure this is an exact quote. I hated the movie. I'm never watching it again. What a waste of time. I can't believe I wasted my money. What a disaster of a movie it was. And he stood by that. And then, to our amazement and surprise and shock, last week or 2 weeks ago, Alan submitted this as a perfect movie, and I am dying to know why.
Yeah, dude, like here was my problem with that movie the first time I watched it. All right. Like, the movie is one that takes itself seriously. Like, it portrays itself as, like, serious and gritty. And it starts off that way. And then my problem with it was that it just got more and more ridiculous the movie, the further it went along. And I, like, my suspension of disbelief, like fell off the railroad tracks, like not even halfway through the movie. And I was like, what is even happening here? And so that was like my major critique of the movie. Is like, I was like, this is just stupider and stupider. Like, what is even happening? Like, this is just ridiculous. Now, remember at the beginning of the movie, it says, like, it starts with that little caption. It's like, Sisu is, a Finnish concept that doesn't have a direct translation into English, which is true. But they didn't really emphasize that well enough for it to be impactful for me, because what happened was maybe was about 4 or 5 months ago now. So anyway, I was in a military class, a joint military course with a bunch of different officers. And one of those officers was from the Finnish army. And he brought like a really unique perspective into, like, kind of wargaming and this kind of stuff. Historically speaking, like, I don't know a lot about the Finnish military, but, like, what they did during World War II, like, changed a lot of things, and it brought a lot of perspective from a militaristic one. Anyway, he's the one that explained to me what Sisu actually is, and as he was, like, kind of talking about it, and trying to, like, actually, like, unravel, like, peel back the layers of how you would translate that into what we would consider English, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this movie actually did exactly what it was, like, trying to do. And so with that perspective, I was like, it might hit the mark. Like, I think it actually did it hit the nail on the head for what it was trying to do. I just didn't understand what that actually meant. So I have a couple little quick things. One is a quote that does kind of capture it a little bit, and it's by a guy named Alexander. Oh, I can't say his last name. Solzhenitsyn. All right, whatever. Sorry, I'm not going to get that. But the quote is this: "The most terrifying force of death comes from the hands of men who wanted to be left alone." And I felt like that kind of captures an essence of what Sisu is, but just kind of like in an essence. And I was like, that's this movie. Like, it started with, I forget the character's name. Did he even have a name? I don't even think he had a name, right? The main character, it started with that. He just wanted to be left alone after having gone through, like, some crazy stuff during war. And then as my Finnish officer friend, like, started to explain to me, like, there are a few elements that go into what Sisu actually is. One being, like, courage beyond reason. Like, it's the quiet resolve to continue acting when logic tells you to quit, right? And I think that's kind of a key point. There's a logic component to it that pushes past, that Sisu pushes past. And I think that movie captured it. There was, like, logical points in this movie. I'm like, that's stupid. That's just ridiculous. That's kind of the point. There's a component of emotional restraint. It's not about, like, loud heroics or dramatics or drama. It's that calm, enduring fortitude. And I think this movie captures that super well, where he just keeps on going beyond what any normal person would be expected to do, right? A phrase that he uses is frozen fire, right? And I thought that was kind of beautiful metaphor, right? A frozen fire within somebody, right? Not a burning, flaming, like flamboyant kind of thing, but just cemented deep, but resonating and burning. And then another component would be that it's action-oriented willpower. So it's not quite endurance. It manifests itself in doing. So it's practical courage, the decision to move forward despite fear, despite fatigue, despite hopelessness. And so there's also like a so from like a Western Christian philosophy, we would say, like, in the face of adversity, a Christian endurance would be like, I endure because God sustains me, right? Like, that's something that I could understand. But Sisu is slightly different. It's I will endure because I must. There is no other choice but to continue. So both like fundamental philosophies kind of ultimately testify to the dignity of the soul under trial. They just take it from a slightly different perspective. So what I wish this movie would have done a little bit more is just explain that concept, or maybe make it more apparent that is like, it all falls under this ideology of Sisu, not just like the little caption at the front. But for somebody like somebody from Finland, and again, the director was Finnish, like it was all a Finnish cast, like it was a Finnish film, and so the target audience gets it because it's their heritage and their history, and then it happened to be broadcast, or shared over here in the Western the rest of the Western world, right? So from that perspective, I gained a different appreciation for it. I realized that the movie, the ridiculousness, the way that all the trials that he goes through, and like hanging himself up or being hung up on the basically across the what was it? Shoot, I'm brain farting. When he was hung up,
like a road sign stand or so, whatever that was. Yeah. So he was like hung up on that road stand sign. I'm like, that's just ridiculous. Like, how does anybody? What are we even doing here, right? Like, that was my first impression. But watching this movie again, kind of with the right perspective, I'm like, what he is demonstrating is that ridiculous beyond reason, this raw, wordless, elemental embodiment of Sisu is actually being manifest all throughout this film. And it gets harder and harder and more taxing and brutal and just raw, wordless, elemental throughout the movie until it reaches a climax. So with that perspective, I was like, okay, this movie actually does what it set out to do. I just didn't get that. I didn't understand it. And then as I kind of backed it up against some of our other criteria, this was I said this when we first talked about it. I was like, one of the things that I really did like about the movie was the cinematography, like the artistic element that they used in this movie was fantastic. And again, the scene, so I said this before, so I'm repeating it now, but the scene where he's underwater and the camera kind of shoots back and it shows him like he's swimming in the water, but it's like pitch black around him and then just like white bubbles and he's like clear. You remember the scene I'm talking about? Yeah.
That is like probably one of the most beautiful underwater scenes I think I've ever seen on screen. And so there are elements to this movie that I appreciated before that I'm just reiterating now. In aggregate with everything else, I'm like, there are some like really beautiful scenes in this movie. Like the scenery was like really good. Like the shots, like wide pan shots were really good. I didn't really consider. Oh, so anyway, I'll pause. But as I was kind of just going through through our criteria, I'm like, I think this might actually qualify as a perfect movie. Full disclosure, I'm actually still not convinced that it is personally myself, but I really wanted to give it another go because I don't think I gave it a fair shake the first time around.
Yeah, man, let's put it under the microscope. I appreciate that. Yeah, dude, after seeing it the first time and then hearing your disdain, I don't even think I pushed back too hard. I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I mean, wasn't it a little entertaining? But you were like dead set. You're like, no, awful. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I get where you're coming from. And I kind of wrote it off and I was like, I'll probably never watch it again. And so then when you nominated it, I'm like, all right, sure. Like, shoot, let's put it under the microscope. Let's give it another shot and let's see if it weren't. And so I did the same thing where I kind of had to shift my perspective. I'm like, let's give this an honest shot. Because the first time, let me just go through like my first time versus the second time watching it. The first time, very similar to you, maybe not as bitter about it, but it was very similar where it was like the opening scene where he's like mining for gold. He's a prospector and there's just like the sunset, the dog, the landscape. It's beautiful. And I was like, oh, I am in. Like I am locked into this movie. It's beautiful. Like the cinematography alone, I am already gonna enjoy this movie. So that was like a check for me. And then I'm like, and here come the Nazis, baby. Let's get to killing some Nazis. This will be fun. And so then as the movie progressed, obviously, as we know, like you just said, it gets more and more ridiculous. And I tried, you know me, I have a very large suspension of disbelief. I really try to give movies the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. I give myself to the movies. I'm like, please convince me that somehow this could be realistic. And so again, this is the first time I'm watching it. And the minefield scene where he's backing up with a shield, I'm like, why didn't they shoot his legs? Like it'd be one thing if like the bullets were just missing him, but all of the bullets are hitting him straight on, like head level, face level, and they can't even see him. You're telling me not one hit his leg? Well, it turns out one did hit his leg. So, chalk that up, whatever. But I was like, okay, miracles happen. Let's move on. And then the underwater scene happens. And I was like holding my breath in the theater. I'm like, even if he's sucking the air out of their lungs, like that's a ridiculous amount of time of holding breath. But his life depends on it. And so I keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. Then the hanging scene, and I was like, okay, no, like they literally stand there for like a minute watching him take off their hats. I'm like, I'm just going to let that slide. Let's still try to enjoy this movie. And then, as you know, the freaking airplane scene just ruins it. And I was like, all right, I'm done. Can't justify it. My suspension, like you said at the beginning, my suspension of disbelief only goes so far. It'd be one thing if the plane slid like movies do sometimes, but the freaking thing nosedived and dirt everywhere. And I'm like, nobody could survive that. Like what? It'd be an easy artistic choice to make it glide into the ground instead of nosedive. And so those are the problems I had. It's very similar to yours. Again, not quite as bitter, but I did say like, the action, the cinematography, it was worth it. It was still a good time for me. So the second time watching it, I was like, all right, how about instead of going into this with the idea that this is based in realism, what if I go into this with the idea that it's based on legend, not quite fact, not quite fiction, because that's how he's framed by the girls, by the girl in the whatever in the wagon, the way that like the legend of him. What is his name? I actually looked it up, but I forgot his name. The character's name is Atami. Like let's just lean into the legend component of this because we do that all the time with other factual stories. This one's maybe not so much legend, actual fact, but it's a miracle. Like Hacksaw Ridge, incredible story of like how did Desmond, I think that was his name, how did he not get shot by the Japanese or whoever they were fighting? And he saved all those people. Miraculous. George Washington was at the Delaware River where like the mist all of a sudden showed up so the British couldn't follow him and that could have ended the Revolutionary War. Like there are miracles. There are like amazing things in our histories that turn into legends that we just accept because, of divine providence or miracles or like luck of the draw, whatever you want to chalk it up to. It's like stuff like that does happen. And so I went into this a second time being like, all right, the legend of Sisu. Let's look at this as legendary. And so then I was like, if it's based in legend, not only can they stretch the truth, but also if it's a story, like imagine, a Native American chief telling an old war story of his ancestors. Of course, they probably get a little bit more dramatic and a little bit more tall tale-ish, but there's still more like morals there to be extracted. There's still lessons to be learned. There's still quality content from stories like that. And I found myself really enjoying the movie a lot more from that perspective. So very similar to what you just said, it almost takes a paradigm shift to enjoy this movie. And again, I'm like, it's not based on true story. As a matter of fact, even the gold is fake. Like when he's dumping out the gold, it sounds like rocks. I'm like, that's not what gold would sound like. Gold is a metal. It should be like ting, 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 but it sounds like rocks that are painted. It looked like fool's gold. It looked like rocks that were painted gold with spray paint. And I'm like, even the gold kind of looks fake, which I didn't want to focus too much on that because it does kind of take you out of the movie. I did want to think that it's real gold because then the stakes are high and you understand where he's coming from. But the point is that they weren't going for total 100% realism. Plus, the gold that he found, that would probably, I remember watching the reality TV show Gold Miners, Gold Diggers, whatever it was back in the early 2000s. Me and my roommates at college were watching it and we were obsessed with it for some reason. And they give little facts in between commercial breaks. And one of the facts I remember that blew my mind was if you took all the gold that's been discovered in the world, the entire world, in the history of humankind, if you took all the gold and you put it into one place, it would be about 1/4 the size of the Washington Monument. Like very little gold in this world. And so the fact that he's got just like boulders of gold, I'm just like, again, so this is legend. This is a grandpa telling a story about his father. And he said he found gold. He found tons of sacks of gold, big gold. And then he had to fight the Nazis to get that gold to finish bank or whatever the story is. I'm like, this is a grandfather telling his story to his grandkid about this legendary hero in their family. And the truth is stretched a little bit like any fish story you're going to hear. And I just found myself enjoying the movie a lot more from that perspective.
Yeah, I would say yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think you have to have a paradigm shift, and that was the trigger for me. But if you consider, for example, like Stoicism, like Western, Greek philosophy, Stoicism, right? That says it's the philosophy of endurance, like pushing on when things get tough, but it's rational. It's rational acceptance. For logical, rational beings. Sisu isn't that. It's an instinct of endurance, not a philosophy of it. So it's not intended to be rational. It's visceral. It has a heartbeat in and of itself. It doesn't somebody, a Finn with Sisu, doesn't accept suffering calmly. They face it with clenched teeth, with silent defiance and motion moving forward. And yeah, just like you said, like that slight paradigm shift, I think makes this movie way better.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, like that was cool. Like the plane explosion, like it gets, I remember this was also one of my biggest criticisms when I first did, is like it literally disintegrated. Like there wasn't a single piece of the airplane left,
Yeah.
like that's completely irrational.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And I found myself trying to justify the parts I didn't like the first time watching through, the second time watching through, and I came up with some justifications. So on the bullet one, I just have to chalk that up to luck. Like anybody who's shot a gun, especially a machine gun, if you ever shoot fully auto, totally inaccurate. Like they are not like accurate guns. And so it makes sense that they would miss, especially with the cloud of dust or whatever. So there's my justification for that. The underwater scene, I'm like, literally, if your life depends on it, you'd be amazed at what the human spirit is capable of. And if he slices a throat and presses his lips against the windpipe, sure, he's going to get some blood in there, but it's life or death at that point. Like breathe in the air from that person's lungs and you can survive. So there's my justification for that. The hanging scene, I was like, you know what? Like in jiu-jitsu, and who knows the history of the main character, the protagonist in Sisu, but apparently he's like a war fighter, a hero. He's been through a lot. And so assuming he did some sort of hand-to-hand combat training, like your first day, and Al, you've experienced a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but your first day doing jiu-jitsu, getting choked, you tap immediately. The longer you do it, you almost get choke tolerance is what I call it, where you can like last longer when somebody applies a choke. Like if a beginner applies a rear naked choke on me, and I've been doing it for a few years, I can usually last like 40 seconds to a minute of them squeezing as hard as they can, because you build these muscles. Like there are muscles here that allow you to breathe. And so I'm like, maybe he's, maybe he was built different. Maybe he's a super strong dude. And so he can just like if you tighten up those neck muscles, you can almost like sip some air in. I've never been hung, but I've been doing jujitsu a long time, so I kind of get it. But then once they leave, once his foot kind of hits the stake or whatever, then it alleviates, obviously. But the part that the justification I like most about this that I created in my head was when he gets that stake into his leg, into the open wound of his leg. It's almost like, how like some torture methods, they don't want to hurt you too bad because you'll pass out. That's your body's mechanism to handling pain, is you pass out. And so then they hurt you again. And there's this threshold where they kind of keep you in the threshold of consciousness in order to keep the torture going. I was like, Sisu, like in the spirit of Sisu, he was probably doing that to himself. He didn't want to pass out. And so he's inflicting pain on himself, that determination, that grit. He's inflicting that pain on himself in his open wound to keep himself conscious, to keep himself alive. That was his defense mechanism from passing out and dying from choking, was like, so the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, that's alleviating the noose. But I'm like, come on, that's like, nobody would actually do that. Second time watching it, I'm like, actually, he's probably doing it to keep himself conscious so he can keep himself alive as long as possible the next morning. And then it pays off. And then the final one, the airplane, listen to this justification. And again, this is such a stretch, but I'm really trying to fight for perfection here. He straps him. I forgot that he strapped himself for whatever reason. The first time I watched it, I thought that he was just in open space in the cargo pit or whatever. And so the second time I'm like, oh yeah, he like straps himself in, which again, probably wouldn't save a person. But I'm like, what if those straps had a little bungee to them? Because there's a whole open cockpit. Like there's a lot of open space. So if it nosedives and he like goes, and then there's like a gradual bungee, maybe a few broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, but maybe he could survive. I mean, the airplane didn't explode. It wasn't a fireball. It was just a bunch of dirt. So again, in the spirit of what you said at the opening, Alan, of what Sisu actually means, of like that determination, that grit, that that stoic determination and toughness, no matter what, to survive. If he just, I don't know, just a little bit of luck, a little bit of divine intervention, maybe that would actually be possible. So again, this is kind of my paradigm shift. How Justin, thanks for, just so everyone knows, Justin just joined. What we were just discussing, Justin, is this movie almost takes a paradigm shift. Instead of going into it with a sense of a realism, that this is like a World War II history drama retelling of a story. Instead of that, think of it more as like a legend that a grandfather is telling his grandchild on his knee, like old wartime stories or something like that. And Alan and I were just discussing, with that paradigm shift, it almost works. And I can almost justify all of the unbelievable, like the unbelievability of the movie. And that's what I was just describing to Alan, in order to justify how absolutely ridiculously loony some of the action scenes were in this movie. Very fun to watch, but unrealistic. But also, isn't life a little unrealistic at times? What do you think, Justin?
Is it okay to laugh at half of this movie? Like, I just found myself laughing, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Okay. Yep, that's what we're doing. Okay. The amount of times that he's been exploded, and he's got wounds, but I'm like, that would have shredded him to bits. And so I look at this, I was trying to put this into, if you take John Wick and how, like, you kill his dog, you have the dog there, and then you put Rambo, and you had a baby, and that's Sisu, because he's like, oh, who does this man think he is? God? No, God would have mercy, but he won't. And that's Rambo right there, right?
Yeah.
And then you have John Wick. They tried to take his dog. Like Gold, I can understand, but they put a bomb on his dog. How dare they? And then if you just had him stoic the whole movie, and you have the Germans speaking English, and then he only speaks, and there's no subtitles for what he says, or at least the version I watched at the end, I was like, on Plex. So is there actual?
There are.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he said.
There were supposed to be subtitles. Yeah, if you turn on the English subtitles, it would show. I had to do that pause because I was like, what did he say? Because I remember in the theater there were subtitles, and they weren't showing when I watched it at home, so I had to manually turn on the subtitles. So go back and rewatch it. Do you remember what he said, Al? I don't remember off the top of my head. It was something like, cash this or put this in an account now or something like that.
Yeah, it was rather benign.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was him making like a legal bank transaction.
I would say I don't know how to put it into succinct words, but maybe it's like intensely shallow, but riveting. But I don't know how to categorize it. And so, like, I'd like to hear like maybe a smaller pitch since I missed the opening pitch.
Yeah, did you watch my Marcos before watching this movie?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So
I got the Dutch, or is it Dutch or Netherlands or
Finnish.
Yeah, one of those European countries somewhere over there.
Yeah. So actually, I can offer a little bit more context. I forget which world war that Sisu actually came out of. I think it started in World War One, and then was like immortalized during World War Two. And it became like a common description. Sisu became a common description of the Finnish soldiers fighting against the Soviets, and to this day, that border between Finland and Russia is one of the most well guarded in Europe, and the Finns are brutal. Like the Soviets. Like remember in World War II, like the Soviets had an upper hand against the Germans because they were fighting in cold weather. Take that to the nth degree, and that's the Finns. Like the Finns, they love that cold weather. Like they thrive in it, whereas the Soviets seem to endure it. The Finns like live for it. So during World War II, it just became a common description. It's like, oh, that person's Sisu, to describe soldiers that were coming home. So there's a little bit of the historical concept, but what I was explaining is that the overall the paradigm shift that I had to have was after this conversation that I had with this Finnish officer during school, where the philosophy of Sisu actually makes sense from the perspective of this movie. What I think. My problem the first time watching it was I didn't get it. Like, I know they put that little disclaimer at the beginning, but it didn't mean anything to me. And so two, I wish that this movie would have expanded on that and just explained it a little bit better. I know they talked about it. I think the girls talked about it.
There's Sisu 2. There's Sisu 2 coming out just now. So we'll get more in depth.
It's a sequel. We'll get more. But you also have to realize that this movie was, it is a Finnish film. And so its target audience was the Finnish people, and they get it, right? It's part of their culture. There's not like a direct translation of that into English. Like, it's a mixture of multiple philosophies that I in English have to like peel back a bunch of different layers in order to describe it. But somebody from Finland is just like, yeah, it's Sisu, and it's just built into their culture. So with that perspective, I was like, I think this movie does it.
Would you say that that's like Bushido for Japan, right? They get it. Like in that context where it's not just religion, but it's like their own zeitgeist and culture.
It's like a way. It's like a deep.
Like we have Santa Claus, they have Father Christmas. It's just it's their folklore that like we don't bat an eye when we think of American things, right? We like pizza, and that's funny that fortune cookies are American, right? We understand it, but everybody outside of the United States is like, what are you doing with these fortunes and cookies? That's not us. That's your culture. So like you're saying this, the World War II Sisu soldier is just commonplace for Finnish.
Right. Yeah, I would consider, yeah, Bushido's probably a good example because it's a way of life, just a way of being. Like, right before you joined us, I was talking about Stoicism from a philosophical perspective, like a Greek Western philosophy. Like, we get that. But like it as a philosophical acceptance of what hardship is, like, we get that, we understand it. Sisu takes that and takes it another step further and turns that acceptance into motion, which for us would change its philosophy, right? Like, we would have to include something else into Stoicism in order for it to be an active in emotion. But Sisu just kind of embodies it all together. So yeah, I think that'd probably be a good way to kind of say it. And then from that perspective, this movie, like, it goes from ridiculous to ridiculous, like from extreme to even more extreme, and that's intentional. And the movie itself takes it seriously. And this was my problem with the beginning. I'm like, this movie takes itself seriously, but it's so laughably ridiculous and absurd and hyperbolic. Like, I can't. Like, my suspension of disbelief just falls off the table. But with that perspective, I'm like, it's doing that on purpose because it actually is like putting on film a concept that my American philosophy just doesn't comprehend, and showing that in a film perspective. And so that's why I nominated it for perfection this time, because I think it actually does exactly what it was intended to do. And with that perspective, with that paradigm shift, I'm like, well, now I can look at it, just like Bo said, from a different perspective, and the ridiculous elements I can justify away, and now I can focus on some of the other things, like the cinematography in this movie is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the blood spatters, or are we talking about like the movie
like
as a whole?
the sunset and the opening scene, the fact that like not a word is spoken for the first 13 minutes, it's all just cinematic.
I think for the most part, this is like the script is probably like 12 pages.
Yeah, very very small dialogue, but again, I love stories that show don't tell. I love that, like, we are following and there's not a lot of dialogue. Again, it's because I obviously also love movies that are dialogue heavy if they're like witty and quick, and but it just depends on the style of movie and the type of movie. But I respect this because it was very cinematic. It's easy to follow, very simple premise, and like Alan was just saying, if it's trying to demonstrate the title of the movie, the concept of Sisu, and it's not based on a true story, that never says that, never claims to be that, then we almost have to look at this as like a piece of fiction to illustrate a concept, like Alan just said. And in that regard, it does exactly what the title suggests it does. It illustrates a concept.
Have you mentioned, like, there will be blood? There's a lot of there will be blood in this to me. A lot of similar tropes, because like he's looking for gold, he finds black gold, right? Because he's looking for gold, but there's no talking, a lot of cinematography, a lot of weird music. Like, I was like, the first half of this movie, I'm like, there will be blood. So it was very similar, but then the only thing I can't wrap my head around is it's not just the silliness and the suspension of disbelief, but I find it was almost like they had to write in so much stuff to make it flow. That takes me out. Like, the plot was like, he has to be hanging but not die, but he has to hold his breath, but he also has to have a nail in the right place to stick his leg in to not die. And it's like so convolutedly, like, on the nose. What do you call it?
It's kind of like Batman with his bat belt that has like a very specific,
yeah,
like,
but it was like
very specific.
The whole second half of the movie felt like that to me, and it was very, very disconcerting, because I was like, I want to give it that leeway, but I can't reconcile. Like, it's okay if he survived the plane, but when he's hanging with it, and it's just
Yeah, the thing the way I would answer that, Justin, is that none of it was easy though. Whereas the bat belt makes everything easy, like it just solves the problem immediately. Every single solution to his problems was like a feat. it was like a very difficult thing to do. It was either extremely painful, the nail in the open wound, or extremely gross, slicing a guy's throat and sucking out the oxygen, including oxygen, or extremely like lucky, painful, insert like traumatic, whatever, when with the airplane, like with that crash, that was still painful. The point is that resilience, the determination to survive no matter what, Sisu, is what's trying to be illustrated. So like if there's just a modicum, if there's a sliver of a chance of survival, he's going to take it and he's going to latch onto it and he's going to like pull on and hold on for dear life. And I think that's the point of that movie.
The string at the end.
Yeah. And so again, the second time watching this movie was a completely different experience than the first time because I knew what to expect and I shifted my. Was this your first time watching it, Justin?
Yeah, but I did look at it and the resilience and never giving up attitude. So I got, let's just say 1.5. I didn't get to the first viewing, but because you had primed the pump, if you will, Alan, I was able to say, okay, I get that the suspension of disbelief is out the window. And then so the only problems I would say the problems I had is there was still not enough plot that was plausible enough to go from A to B to Z. I felt like the stretches in your disbelief were like, man, I need a paragraph or like a whole new chapter. Because remember, they were doing the chapters.
Yeah.
I needed to do like a few more chapters at the end there.
Well, that's coming this year. You know, the sequel, right? We're going to get the next few chapters.
By the way, can I just say, I love when movies do that. I don't know why, but I love when they break them up into chapters for whatever reason. I think it's because it's not common. It's kind of I don't know. It's kind of like a brief intermission. Like
Justice
comic
League
book type.
Yeah. What would you say, Al?
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, exactly.
2-hour version.
Yeah,
that movie did it for me for that.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Then you could also say this is the part of this story, and this is where we're changing, and you can change the tempo and all that thing, all those things.
Yeah.
And the audience is like, oh, we're gearing up for something different. We're gearing up for something different. And I felt like end didn't have that as much as the beginning. And so I feel like there's like the first half of the movie is different than the second half of the movie, even though he's going through hard times and like at the end, even him, like he gets his gold back. I'm like, how did he get it all back? I'm like, no, don't even think about it. It's just I didn't have that satisfying ending that I was looking for because I was like, okay.
And again, I think that's intentional. And I think that in and of itself embodies Sisu, right? We start with the story. There's something that's leading into it. But by the end of the movie, it doesn't, like, it's that irrational perseverance just to get done. Like the story doesn't matter anymore because like, so put yourself into like really stressful, like really intense, grueling, life and death type situations. I don't know that we've all been in like those kinds of things, you know what I mean? But putting yourself into like really stressful environments, like you don't care how it happens. Just get me to the end. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe a way to think about it is like holding your breath underwater and you're only sinking further, right? It gets to a point where you're like, I don't care how I get back to the surface as long as I do. I don't care if it's my breaststroke or an overhand crawl. Like it doesn't matter. There's no logical step-by-step process that I'm going to be satisfied with as long as I can get to the end. And that's what Sisu's kind of embodying. Like it starts off with the story. There's a pacing in the first half of the movie, but then it gets to a tipping point. It gets to the point where logic and reason no longer matter because you've broken past the point of where those things help you endure. And that's where Sisu kicks in. And so for the rest of the movie, it's like pure, raw, guttural, elemental, visceral action. Just like momentum, movement forward to get to the end.
You know, I thought, Alan, when you were like, maybe none of us have experienced it. I thought about being pulled on a tube while Dad's driving. I feel like I've had those moments where I'm like on with fingertips and we're going so incredibly fast. I'm like, this is like, I'm going to break a bone if I fall off right now. Like, you have to stay on. Like, you're going insanely. I think Chase calculated one time with the length of the rope and the speed of the boat. I think we're going like 95 miles an hour on that tube on those roundabout edges. And you're just hanging on for dear life. And I know I've heard your guttural scream as you pulls yourself up onto a tube. I've done the same thing where I'm like,
Yeah.
like, I can't hang on anymore, but maybe if I barrel roll, I can end up on the other side, and I do somehow. Sometimes like there is like this weird, like there's this weird Neanderthal primal strength that kicks into gear when you feel like your life is on the line. And again, it's a silly example because our lives weren't really on the line, but I felt like they were. And I've felt like this deep, like, boost of strength, energy. Like, my muscles are completely giving out, my grip is giving out, but somehow I still pull myself up. Like, there's something like that, you know? And I feel like if my kids' lives were in danger, if my own life was in danger, if I feel like even on that, when he's on the other side of the plane with the thing, I bet he's like, oh, I'm gonna die. And then the thing loosens and then he hooks again. And he's like, I didn't die. Like, I can put myself in that situation being like, that should have been death. And somehow it wasn't. I'll take it. Like, this is my lucky day. Wow. Thank you, God. I will take it. And that's kind of how I view all this, like the ridiculousness of this movie is I'm just like, you just got lucky, and it happens. Sometimes miracles happen. And again, that's the literal interpretation. But I think what we're settling on is that this movie wasn't meant to be literal. It's meant to be a visual illustration of a concept. And in that regard, I think that it hits the mark. You guys want to go to votes?
Let's do it.
We're good. We dissected it enough. All right. I think, yeah, I was like you, Al, when we first came into this conversation. Just so you know, Justin, Alan was like, I still don't know if I think it's perfect. It's like, let's talk about it a little bit. And I kind of came into the same way. But yeah, after discussing it and like tossing it around and conceptualizing it a little bit, I think I'm gonna vote yes. I think it did its purpose, and I was entertained. And I'd be, again, giving kind of the same framework, the same heads up that Alan gave us on Marco Polo. If you like, the whole point of this is to get our perfect movie list so that if ever we have a friend over, a guest over, we're having a movie night, we're hosting, we can just pull up this list and be like, all these movies are awesome. And I feel like if we were to select this one to somebody who hasn't seen it before, I could just give them that little prelude that Alan gave us and, incorporate some of the elements that we've talked about in this discussion. And I think it'd be a good time. Alan,
let me ask you this question though. How do you rank this against There Will Be Blood? Because I feel like they have very, like, if one is in, the other is in. How did you vote for There Will Be Blood?
I voted yes for There Will Be Blood because I thought that Daniel Day-Lewis's performance was excellent, but it's a completely different mood. So again, if I had guests over, I'd be like, you guys in the mood for drama, action, comedy? If they pick comedy, I'd be like, oh, come on, Al, what was
Sisu.
Al, what was the Nick Cage movie?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Why can't I think?
Massive Talent.
Of Massive Talent?
There you go. Yeah, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. If they say action, I'd be like Sisu. If they say drama, I'd be like, There Will Be Blood. So it really depends on the mood. I don't think that this one, like the comparing them, it's almost apples to oranges because they're a different genre, even though they are similar in tone, like you said, Justin.
All right, go ahead, Al. Oh.
Hey, I nominated it. You take your vote first, and I'll take the last word.
Okay. Well, I am definitely a contrarian, or at least I'm the least perfect of the group because the ones I like, not many like, and the ones you guys just absolutely love perfection is just like outside the box for me. And maybe this is how you guys feel about my movies, is when I'm like, I did like Massive Talent, and I actually put that as perfect. And I didn't talk about, I'll talk about in Marco Polo on why I do think that King Arthur, the one that you suggested, was perfect. So I've given both of you one each. No, I did both of yours, Alan.
Yeah, this
so
is
far.
my third. This is my third nomination.
Third. And this is also one of those things where we've said perfection sometimes has to simmer, And you're in 5 years, 10 years from now, we'll probably review this list, and a few of these perfect will be out, and a few of them we nominated will be in. I think by our age and experience and other movies, and so I would say it's still not perfect in my book because it lacked a few certain elements, and I can't exactly explain except for like you guys thought that a nuclear bomb almost exploding and all that stuff was just like it's action, but I've seen it before. And this felt like I've seen these movies before. Like John Wick, I think did it better. The boogeyman aspect, right, where the main character that you're following is actually the villain, the bad guy. I mean, that kind of trope, right? He's the boogeyman. He's taking his vengeance. Or like Ghost Rider. I had a lot of Ghost Rider in this. You know how Johnny Cage. And so I had that in the back of my head. I'm going, but I like that style. Like if we're going to go over the top, we might as well just have a flaming head skull. If we're just going to go with, you can't kill me and I'm going to come after you and come after you, come after you. And so there's those elements where I wanted a little bit more from the movie. And so again, 8.5 out of 10, but not perfect to me.
Cool. So I pulled up the list really quick, and I'll just run through it just to recap here at the end. Right? Was I entertained, and did the movie do what it meant to? As we said before, the paradigm shift. Yes, I think it did. So especially if you consider the genre. Was I moved? Right? Did it inspire me? Did it touch me here, and here? Again, the paradigm shift. I think it did. Were you connected to? Did you have empathy for the characters? How well did the score enhance the movie? Do you get yourself kind of trauma bonded with whoever you're watching it with? Was I impressed? So now we're talking about the visual effects, the cinematography, the score, the dialogue, implied intelligence, right? That's one that we really hammer on when we talk about our criteria. The skills and acting, stunts, the historical component, I brought in that a little bit. The creativity in delivering the storytelling. So is it unique against its peer movies? And I think that really, in this particular case, the uniqueness against other action movies, I think this one is, it did things that I'd never seen in a movie before. You know what I mean? Again, the cut in the throat and breathing out of somebody's freaking lungs. I've never seen that in a movie before.
Or throwing the mine.
Oh, right? Yeah, exactly. Like this movie took some pretty awesome creative liberties. Was a good story told? And there, I do think that this is debatable, right? Like I said, I think a story is being told until it gets to the point where the story doesn't matter anymore. And I think that's intentional. So for better or for worse, that I do believe it's intentional. Lost my place on my list. Does it have the girlfriend factor? The remote drop? Debatable. Yeah. Rewatchable. Does this movie get better with rewatches? This, I can 100% say yes. From my first time to my second time, this movie got a lot better. So will it stand the test of time? I guess time will tell. But yeah, I'm gonna give it the yes. I am surprised myself that's kind of my conclusion. I took a risk, but I knew I needed to give this movie another chance based off of a conversation I had with an actual Finn.
Did you watch? Is this your third time watching it then, or is just still your second?
Yeah,
so you watched it the one time, you hated it. You had this one, and then like only a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, you watched it a second time.
So I was waiting. I intentionally waited after I had this conversation with my Finnish friend, and then and he was kind of a movie buff anyway, and he specifically recommended this movie to like our group of classmates. They're like, hey, what would be a good Finnish movie? And he's like, if you want to see a Finnish movie, you need to watch Sisu. And I was like, I hated that movie. And so that's what kind of led me to the conversation. I was like, I need to give this movie another rewatch, and I saved it for this. So
you nominated it not rewatching first.
Yeah.
And going, well, I hope he was right.
Yep. Yeah,
Alan went from the safest movie men, starting with The Last Samurai, which obviously is a perfect movie, to now, like, again, Massive Talent was a risk because of the comedy, and comedies are super subjective. Sisu was a risk because Alan hated it the first time and he didn't even watch it a second time before nominating it. So kudos to you, Al. This has been great. This has been fun. Without further ado, though, I am next on the list, and Justin, we'll get the other guys' votes. Obviously, on Marco Polo, I'll splice them in, post edit. But Justin, I have to cringe. I picked this movie months ago, in preparation for this, and I have to cringe a little bit because I forget what you said. All I remember, you were joking with the group, and you said something like, I'm sorry that I don't pick an R-rated, super violent, super edgy movie all the time. And I'm like, crap, man. Well, that's my next movie, is an R-rated, edgy. Like, so sorry that I'm forcing you to watch something that
the tropes.
Yeah, probably make you uncomfortable again. But this one is a movie
as long as it's not what is the stupid David Fincher movie?
Which one?
Girl with the dragon tattoo or whatever.
Yeah, that
was terrible. As long as it's not that.
That was a rough one. No, it's not that. This is a movie that absolutely floored me when I first saw it in theaters. Again, so many of my stories are like this, where there's $5 movie night on a Tuesday here in Utah. When I was single, is what I do every single Tuesday. And so when I watched all the movies that I wanted to watch, whatever movie I hadn't seen, I watch it. And this was one of them. And I remember walking out of the theater being like, I need to sing this from the rooftops. This is amazing. And I think it's like a 6.7 on IMDb. Didn't get a lot of love. When did it come out? 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. But it's a drama, bank heist, modern Western. So 3 genres I absolutely love, done absolutely perfect in my opinion. It's a Taylor Sheridan movie, Hell or High Water, with Chris Pine. You guys seen it?
Alan, yes.
No,
this will be a fun rewatch.
Yeah.
This is the one where he's got like a full beard, right?
Chris Pine?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, I think he's clean shaven in this, but his brother has a little bit of a beard, if I remember right. It's been years since I've watched it, so I've been saving this rewatch as well for the group. But I just remember, like, I've seen it probably 3 times.
It's mustaches.
A mustache. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And but it's a great movie. Like, again, I love westerns, and this is a modern western, and I love, like, Taylor Sheridan's the best at this, where he can take like western tropes that usually only work in historical pieces like Tombstone or El Dorado, and he can somehow insert them into a modern context. And to me, that's so fun. That's so fun to take like an old western feel and put it into a modern day scenario, modern day movie, and this movie does it better than any movie I've ever seen. So
and this is the same guy that did No Country for Old Men, right?
I don't know if he did No Country for Old Men. He did Wind River. He wrote Wind River, Sicario.
Okay. Yellowstone. He's behind the Yellowstone series.
Yeah. So
No Country for Old Men.
That was based on a book by Cormac McCarthy, but I don't know who directed No Country for Old Men.
Writers Joel Cohen, Ethan Cohen brothers.
Yeah, no.
Director Cohen. Okay, so it's not that, because that to me is like all the modern cowboy.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's kind of got the same energy. So just as preparation in terms of the mood, kind of prepare yourself like No Country for Old Men. It's kind of that same kind of mood where it's like a sullen, serious, but take your time with it, because it is a movie that takes its time, and I love that about it. Again, pay attention to the cinematography, like pay attention to how it just like it lets you marinate in scenes. It doesn't just move on, scene to scene to scene. It kind of we'll talk about it obviously once we all watch it. But I absolutely love this movie. I think you'll like it, Justin. I'm hoping.
It looks intriguing, and I have seen a meme or like a short where I guess they're in a parking lot at a gas station. That's all. I don't want to do any spoilers, but from that alone, I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And Chris Pine is like one of my favorite man crushes.
Yeah,
because I loved him in Star Trek ever since Star Trek. He did phenomenal. And then I've always followed him. I loved him in Dungeons and Dragons recently, where he's the bard.
Dude, he'll be floored because he, like, whether it's Star Trek or whether it's
Or the recruit. Or,
This Means War. Do you remember that? This Means War, where he's like an agent with Tom Hardy. It's a romantic comedy. Chris Pine, because he kind of has like the same energy in those types of movies. In this one, completely different. He is like a low talking grizzly cowboy, man. It's amazing. He does such a good job. Like he's low energy. He's great. So I think you'll like it. So give it a watch. We'll I'll tell the boys my nomination on Marco Polo here in just a minute, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks. Sound good?
Awesome. Love it.
All right. Love you, dudes. Take care.
Yep.